Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Say hi when you come into the chat. And I will start saying hi to everybody as well. We got Stripe Goat in the house, Donata, Benjamin, Jason, Carl. Put a LFG in the chat if you're ready to go. There's no rant subject today. I mean, rants do come out of nowhere. All right, they could come at any time. But what we are doing today is a deep dive. This is going to be like a free masterclass. This is going to be one of those live streams you want to bookmark, you want to revisit in the future, you want to share with other people. We're just going to do like a masterclass on overarching CSS philosophy, not like the intricacies of CSS, not like let's learn syntax or let's learn specific techniques. Let's talk philosophy. Let's talk approach. Let's talk, because if you don't understand the philosophy and the approach, you can't do the right things at the right time in the right ways. You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand the philosophy and the approach from a top-down view. 30,000 foot, here's how it all works. Here's how it all comes together. And so what I've done to help us with this is, and you know, I didn't spend a lot of time on this. You know, you get what you pay for. It's a free live stream. I mean, oh geez, we're already got problems. It's free live stream. You get what you pay for. Okay, I don't know what to tell you, but you know, I can only do what I can do in the time allotted. But what I've done is I've kind of put a bucket together. You guys can't see this. Let me share before. This is, what a disaster. Okay. I put this together. Let me zoom in. I've got this like bucket of techniques and workflows. I mean, we've got things like global style sheets, a tree shaking selector system, utility classes, BEM modifiers, variables, nesting, recipes, mixins, inline styles, data attributes, framework, mini framework. Where do these things go, right? But then I've got these challenge buckets, okay? Like we have a challenge of global styling on every single project. We have a challenge of local styling on every single project. We've got this challenge of local styling for common complex patterns that show up over and over and over and over and over again. We've got the problem of sometimes that we need to externally control the local styling. Well, what are we gonna do for that? We've got this challenge of specific but common problems that we run into in our work. We've got a challenge of animation. We might have other challenges, okay? Like what we need to do today is we need to figure out what do these techniques mean? What are they, right? How do they work? What do they do? And then what buckets do they really belong in? What do we apply them to? So when do we use these things? Why do we use these things? Where do we use these things? And I think this is going to really help everybody mentally put the pieces in place, right? You gotta have a clear picture of the puzzle, and then you can really start diving into your work, okay? So let's go ahead and check the chat real quick. Lizzie says, need this lesson. Thank you. Well, that's why we're here. That is why we are here. I like the LFGs, got a lot of LFGs, got some good energy already. This is fantastic. Okay. I think you should add scope to the techniques too. Yeah, I mean, we can add it. I don't know that we're going to, I'll just be honest with you. I have not found a really good use case for scope. Not found a really good use case for scope. It's good that it's there. I mean, maybe at some point it'll come into play. But as of right now, I just don't have a great use for it. Because BEM kind of does that. BEM already scopes styles. If we could talk about it that way. But BEM is effectively already a scoping mechanism. And BEM, let's just be honest. I've said it time and time again. It's undefeated. BEM is the king. BEM is undefeated. Okay, BEM has been challenged repeatedly over and over and over again throughout the years. It just keeps staying on top. It just keeps winning. So yeah. All right, well, let's talk about it. So we're gonna go from the perspective of I've got an etch install here. I've got a layout that we will eventually work through building because we got to see this kind of stuff in action, right? But I want you to think about etch. I was watching a video the other day of a person trying out etch for the very first time. And it's very clear if somebody just, downloads the etch plugin and installs it, right? They're going to be met with a blank slate. In fact, like I can, let's see if we can actually demonstrate this. So I'm going to go in and we'll just go to plugins, automatic CSS deactivate. Okay. Now let's launch etch. And I mean, you add something to this is kind of what you're met with. It's like a very unfriendly canvas of, there's no spacing. Everything's touching everything. It's just ugly. It's just gross. This is really gross, right? And you'll see somebody try to start to work from this standpoint. And it's very painstaking. And, people might conclude, I don't want to do this. Well, you're right. I don't want to do that either. What are we talking about? Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to start from this nonsense right here, okay? Because anybody who knows what they're doing already has solutions to expedite them through this scenario right here to a working position, like a position where we actually feel like, oh, okay, good. I can start to get some work done now. Like nobody is proposing that you start with a situation like this. This is horrific. This is horrific. And by the way, this is the problem is, a certain degree of intellect is required in what we do. But, too many people would look at this situation and go, well, this is an etch problem. This is like, I don't like etch. And this is why we can't provide a sandbox. Like everybody asks, well, give them a free trial. Give me a sandbox. No. I've watched too many people dick around like in this scenario right here and come to all of the wrong conclusions. And it comes from a lack of understanding of philosophy and just like I was talking about, big picture stuff, right? Nobody wants to start from this. And this is not an etch problem. This is a web design problem. This is a web development problem, okay? It's like when you open up CodePen and you start writing HTML and CSS in code. There's nothing of substance there for you to start with, so you feel like, God, I got to do everything. Well, yeah, nobody wants to do that. That is a fundamental web development problem, okay? And so we open up Figma, and we need to start tackling the various challenges. Well, first of all, there's a challenge of global styling. What is global styling? Well, all of your spacing, all of your headings, your text, so the typography, link styling, okay? Those are probably and colors, okay? Those are probably like the biggest things, right? Like that's what you see missing from this right here. There's no colors to work with. There's no spacing to work with. There's no typography to speak of, okay? Everything is going to be browser defaults. And this is actually slightly better than it would be because Etch already provides a container with a max inline size, and it's already centered in the section, which is already display flat. Like it's already doing like a tiny bit for you, but still this is not where you would want to start from, okay? So the question is, and let me just check on chat. People are asking questions, which is fantastic. Just make sure that they have hashtag Q, okay? Not buttons yet, Stripe Goat. Buttons are gonna be in a different bucket. Okay, good. A lot of questions coming in. This is good. Oh, dude, of course. I mean, you gotta do this, okay? Go dogs. Go dogs. Unbelievable. What an ass whooping. What an ass whooping that was. You love to see it. You love to see it. Okay. I watched that video too. It shows you tips. Onboarding Etch could use some work. Unless you watch your videos, people don't get it. It's not even onboarding Etch. That's the thing. It's not even onboarding Etch. This is what I'm doing now. This is why we're doing the live stream. I am onboarding everybody right now to the philosophy of styling in web development, because So many people are so very confused. And what they don't understand is like when you open Elementor and you start building, it's given you a lot of these things out of the box. It's just given them the wrong way. But because it's given to you rather than not given to you, you feel like, oh man, I could just start building because this stuff's already ready to go. But it's not. It's an absolute disaster under the hood. It's just, it makes you feel, right? It gives you a feeling. And because if you don't actually know what's going on, that's a, it's not an accurate feeling. Like it's a false sense of confidence, we should say. So, okay, let's solve the problem. How do we solve the problem of this global styling? So let's go back to Figma. Let's go to our toolbox. Here's our toolbox, okay? And back in the day, what would happen is you would open up a global style sheet. I'll do this in Etch. This is literally this is fundamental web development 101 back in the day, okay? So you would open up a style sheet and you would start writing, base styles for things like, hey, here's the base styles I want my H1 to have. It's going to have a specific font size. It's going to have a specific color. It's going to have a da-da-da-da-da. And then you would do the same for H2. And then you could combine styles. You could say, well, I want these styles that I'm going to write right here to apply to all these things at the same time, okay? And then you would need to do paragraphs and body styles and list styles. And then what about colors? Because the minute I do color, got to make some decisions. What am I going to use? A hex code? Am I going to use a variable? Am I going to use a what? There are just hundreds of decisions you have to make. Hundreds of decisions you have to make. And then you have the option of where do I put those decisions? Like right now I'm putting them in a global style sheet, which, that seems to make sense, but we do now work in a scenario where I can, if I want to, I can use, let's go back to our toolbox here. I can use a tree shaking selector system for my global styles. So, and this is something that people would not know out of the box with Etch, for example, because no other builder really does this very well, okay? Most of them don't do it at all. The others don't do it very well, right? So if I go back in here and I say, hey, H1, or I could even do H1, H2, H3, I could do any of the selectors that I wanted to, okay? And I think that's an H2 on the page, so we'll just do H2. And if I select that heading, you see that selector has now come up, which gives me, number one, this nice visual approach to styling. Like I wanna add my color here or my font size. Let's do a font size of 2 rem, okay? It's put that on there now. And that is a global, that is gonna apply not just to this one heading that you're looking at right here, but all H2s on the website. This is global CSS, but it's written using a tree shaking selector system. Now, what is the benefit of a tree shaking selector system over a global style sheet? That's a first philosophy question that you have to understand, because there are actually advantages to doing it like this, okay? This comes with advantages. One of the advantages is when I'm in a clicky builder, like a visual interface, any visual interface where I see something and can click it, I can interact with it, right? That is going to be the natural tendency. The natural tendency is like, where are the styles for this thing coming from? Let me click on it and find out. And now when I click on it, I can find out. The only way to do that with global styles put in a style sheet is to inspect the page. And you let the inspector tell you where the styles are coming from. Or go to the style sheet and hunt down the selector, okay? So that's one advantage, is that it maps better to a visual interface, okay? The second advantage is that the system that's rendering the page is going to look and see, hey, are there any H2s on this page? Because if there aren't, we don't need to load this CSS. We'll just not load it because there aren't any of those things, okay? So that gives you an advantage, whereas a global style sheet, you're saying load these styles regardless of anything. Just, I'm putting them in here. you're gonna load the sheet and we're gonna move on with our life, okay? So you can put 1,000 selectors in here with all the styling and then load a page with none of those selectors and that style sheet is gonna load. That's a little bit of a downside. It's a little bit of a downside. Another downside to these style sheets is they get very long. So now you're scrolling up and down looking for specific things. You're out of the context of interacting with the page anymore. So there's obvious downsides to this. Now you could also say, I'm not gonna do either one of those things. Kevin. Let me delete that selector right here. What I'm gonna do to solve this problem, okay, so let's go back. Remember, we said, well, you can do a global style sheet for this. Global styling, global style sheet, move on with your life, okay? What is the downside of this? That's going to take a long time. There are hundreds and hundreds of decisions that you have to make. So if you don't want to make those one of you don't know what those decisions are, and you don't want to make them, and you don't want to make them constantly, because remember, you do that for this project, you're going to have to do it for the next project too. And the next project after that. This is going to be a problem you run into over and over and over again. Well, I don't want to do that. So that's out. We're not using that technique. What about the tree shaking selector system? Well, that definitely came with advantages, but it doesn't solve the problem of there's hundreds of decisions I have to make, and I have to know how to, one, I got to know which ones they are, and two, I got to know how to solve them. Because I'll give you a hint, font size 2 rem is not a solution. Okay, font size 2 rem is not the route you want to go. What we need to get into is font size clamp function that takes into account your website's content width, clamp function that is related to the other font size clamp functions, probably with some sort of math scale. That can also then, when you interact with the scale, they all update automatically. You don't have to manually update them. That would be tragedy. See the level of complexity that we get ourselves into very, very quick. We can't even build anything yet because we haven't even made these decisions, okay? These are architectural decisions for the project that have to be made now. They can't be made later, okay? So tree shaking selector system, out of the question. Not even a thing. Well, why don't we just go utility class? Let's go utility first. I've heard about that. Let's go Tailwind, okay? For global styling, I think it's the worst possible fucking option you could go with. It's like, it's a really bad option. It's a really bad option for global styling. Because the idea that I want to put, I'm going to put an H2 class on every H2 heading, and then like, man, what if I need to change? Man, it's just bad. It's just not a good solution. It's a really bad solution. So I'm not doing it. Let's take that out of the mix. Okay, we can't use BEM modify. None of these things are appropriate for what we're trying to do. But you know what is? If I just drag one thing into this box, framework, all my problems go away. All my problems go away right here. And we can actually get started working, okay? So I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna show you what happens, right? We activate, bang, okay. We go back in, let's launch Etch. Oh my God, our whole thing has come to life. And now all of these decisions, colors, shades, color assignments, where do my colors belong, color scheme, typography, all of this is handled for me. And I can make, now, by the way, here's the critical part of this. You use a framework that's built correctly. The micro decisions of how big is the font? How big is H1 or H2 or H3? What is the ratio? What are the colors, okay? What are the shade values? What about the spacing? How is that gonna all work? What are those sizes compute to? What's my gutter? What's my this one? Those micro decisions can be decided at any time because this is architected properly. The decisions are done. The micro decisions can be done at any point, okay? The important part is that once I activate that, global styling is all taken care of, all those decisions, I can actually just start building. I could just start building straight out of the gate. And I have what appears to be a functioning canvas. Like it has padding, it has good typography, right? It has a gutter. Things are not touching the edge of the screen, okay? I'm good to go. I have taken those hundreds of questions and I've just instantly solved them by clicking a button. Done, okay? But now we have new challenges. Still don't have anything on the page. I wanna build, let's get rid of this. I wanna build this hero section right here. The modern hero section with 3 images. It touches the edge of the screen over here. It's got a nice healthy gap here. It's got some spacing between this group of content. It is in alignment with the website's content width on the left side, even though it goes full width on the right side. So there's, some challenges going on here. Obviously, it's gonna have to be mobile responsive to some degree. So we lose the, I don't know, I felt my computer's, you see how it's like lagging on the rendering of this? I hope it doesn't affect much of what we do today. I think I don't know what's going on. Things were just not behaving weird. They're behaving weird in certain situations, namely this browser situation. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it's good. But as you see, a lot of things got to change here. But this is our next challenge, because this is not global defaults. Like, global defaults are now taken care of. Okay. Let me close that out. All right, let me close this out. Let's get our tabs under control here. Okay, so let me just show you on the front end, right, that this heading right here, right, is control. Look, like the line height decisions are made. Not only are they made, they're tokenized, right? The font weight decisions, the text wrapping decisions, the font size is already tokenized as an H2. Look what this maps to. Fairly complex clamp functions. These can be changed and updated at any single time. This is all taken care of. We don't have to worry about this anymore, okay? We are now free to move on. So we've put one technique into this box and it's solved. Now we come in here, we are now faced with a local styling problem. How are we gonna build this hero section and style it? Okay, so let's start to build it. What is it called? Hero section something, something, something. Uniform. Okay, hero section uniform. So I'm gonna throw a section on the page. Hero section uniform, okay? And it's gonna have an inner, obviously. If you've watched my other live stream about process, you know that we need to do structure first. You don't just start styling. You don't throw one thing on a page and start styling it. You gotta build your structure out. Once you've got all your structural elements, then we're gonna talk about selectors. And then we can talk about styling, because you can't style things if you haven't selected them. All right. So and selection doesn't mean click, click, click. Okay. Don't worry. We're going to get into all of that. So what we're going to do is we are going to look at the actual structure here. And what I am seeing is, if I can draw, okay, at least one big box here and what appears to be another big box here containing this image group. So to me, it looks like at least I need 2 boxes inside of this inner. So I'm just gonna add them here. We're gonna call this a content wrapper, and we're gonna call this an image group, okay? Now, inside of the image group, how many images did I have? I had 3 images. I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna right-click wrap in div. I do wanna put this in a figure tag, okay? This is gonna be called an image wrapper. And then this is gonna be called the image, and it's an image tag. So I've got my image group. I can duplicate this now. So I have 3 figures, 3 images, all in an image group, okay? Then I have content wrapper. What belongs in the content wrapper? Well, I see a heading, okay? I also see a couple paragraphs, and I see a link. So I'm gonna let the heading live by itself. I'm gonna group these things in another box right here. Okay? I think those things ideally belong together because we have to have different spacing here from these groups, and that's probably going to be the easiest way to approach it. So I'll drop my heading in there, and then I'll drop another flex div or a div, whatever you want to use, okay? And that's the content wrapper, and we'll call this the text group, all right? And in the text group, we might have a P with, can I do my lorem in here yet? I guess not, okay? It's still, at least I don't know how to do it. I don't know. Let's do P times 2, okay? Let's just throw 2 paragraphs in there. This can be lorem 20. Lorem 20, there you go. And then let's do lorem 8, okay? We just want a little paragraph down there. So not a lot of content going on. And then let's put our anchor link in there as well. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and save. Let's refresh on the front end. Here's what we've got, okay? Now the question is, do we have all of our things? Do we have all of our things that we need? Let's go back and look. I see a heading. I see paragraph. I see a link. I see 3 images. I've got 2 groups. It looks to me like I've got pretty much everything I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all these labels here make sense, right? So I can just say paragraph, and anchor. That's going to say, I like to say CTA with that instead of anchor. But all these names now seem to make sense. Now, why did I name all of these things? Well, for 2 reasons. One is only a psychopath doesn't organize their structure panel, because it is a massive time saver. When you have a big page built out, when you're trying to find specific elements, the idea that you're just looking at generic like divs, here's another div for you, here's another div, here's a text, here's a div, here's a link, here's a this, and you're like, but what do they belong to? What is the relationship? The debugging is a nightmare. Guys, the debugging is a nightmare. You gotta structure your thing. You gotta name your stuff, okay? It's really, really, really important. Okay. Second reason is because there's a tool in here that is going to dramatically speed up my workflow. But to talk about that, we need to go back to our solutions for local styling. How are we going to manage this local styling? Let's go back to our toolbox. Do I use a global style sheet? Do I use a global style sheet for local styling? In the old day, this is literally how it was done. You would write your HTML, you'd pop back to your global style sheet, and you would put in the selectors, and you would write the CSS, and that would bring your structure to life. That is literally how it was done. Is this how it should still be done? No, you don't get any of the benefits of using a visual development environment. You're bouncing back and forth. You don't have any tree shaking. You don't have, if you want to export your pattern, if I want to share this hero section with somebody else, none of the styling is going to go with it. There's just so many downsides to using a global style sheet for this. This would be a bad decision. This is a decision that we have graduated, we have evolved, we have innovated away from. We're not pulling this out of the toolbox, okay? Tree shaking selector system. That sounds a bit more appropriate. Let's put selectors on the elements. Let's write the CSS on the selectors, and let's let the visual environment tree shake it out for when it's needed and not needed. And let's be able to export this. Let's let the CSS live with the pattern I'm building, live with the blocks that I'm adding to the page, blocks in terms of what we're going to talk about in a second, which is BEM. Now, some people would say, no, don't use a tree shaking selector system. Use utility classes. Well, utility classes have a problem. What are utility classes? A utility class is a class that does a very, very specific thing, okay? So for example, if I wanted this to be the size of an H1, okay? I could put the H1 class on here, and it's going to do all of my H1 styles now applied to this heading, even though it's an H2. Now, this shouldn't be an H2, okay? This should actually be an H1, but that's the idea of a utility class. I want it to look like an H5. I put an H5 utility class on there. It looks like an H5. If I had a like text L utility class, or text XXL, or text primary to make it the primary color. These are examples of utility classes, okay? And there are various philosophies. First philosophy is utility first. That means use a utility class for everything. Do not write any CSS. Put a utility, everything that you need to do should be done with a utility class. This is the tailwind approach, okay? There are problems with that in a visual development environment. We don't have to get too deep into it. It is an insane amount of typing. You do not By the way, for those of you who don't like to type, that is a lot of typing. It does not spare you from having to learn CSS. In fact, for those of you who are in the learning process of learning CSS, in order to use Tailwind, one, you have to learn CSS, and then you have to learn the Tailwind framework on top. It's another layer of learning curve. It dirties your HTML. It is very, very difficult to read and debug. It's got a lot of challenges. Now, some people are going to disagree with that, and that's fine. I think that there are some things that are objective reality. Tailwind relies, for example, on I would say project-wide find and replace, which is not ideal in a visual development environment, okay? Where you don't have access to the entire file system all at the same time. So there are definite problems. Aside from the fact that it doesn't actually help you all that much. It doesn't, more than a selector with CSS and a mini GUI? No. Let's race. It will be like Georgia versus Alabama. That's what it will be like, okay? An absolute ass kicking. That's what it will be. So yeah, that's not, I don't take that out of the toolbox at this time. So I'm going to put that back. We're not going to do utility classes yet. We are going to use the tree shaking selector system. Now, the problem is if we're going to use the tree shaking selector system, I'm going to show you what a selector is. Okay, let's go in here. So I need to select this heading right here. I mean, what is the name of the, well, one, I got to know, am I going to use an ID? Am I going to use a class? Am I going to use a data attribute? These are all selectors. What am I going to use? Well, a class is the primary and best use case generalized selector, okay? Not an ID, not an ID, okay? Here's what an ID looks like, okay? It would be like, the dumbest one would be heading. I mean, I was thinking about like, how would you even do this intelligently? And then my brain was like, well, this is just not an intelligent way to do it. So it doesn't really matter at all. So let's just do it the dumbest possible way. Let's just do an ID of heading, okay? So there is an ID. And I can style this ID, okay? Like if you wanted the color to be red, for example, there you go. Now the color's red, okay? That's a selector. This is a dumb way to do this. This is a very objectively dumb approach, okay? Anybody that argues that this would be a great way to do it has no idea what they're doing. So now the caveat here, the most interesting part of this is that every page builder on Earth, except for Etch, uses this approach right here. They all do it. What are they doing? What are they doing? They all do this. They don't do this specifically. In all fairness, they do something like this. They randomly generate an ID that's nonsensical. And then they encourage you to just style this. Like, yeah, do that. Yeah, sure. Do that right there. That's a good approach, isn't it? I mean, they lead you right off a cliff. They lead you right off a cliff. And then you know, the others came along and, you know, they claimed to be more intelligent. Like, you know, Breakdance would be an example of this. And they were like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that ID styling stuff anymore. You know, we've learned, you know, they do this. Which is essentially the ID version of a class. It's a class, it's a nonsensical auto-generated class name. And it does solve a couple specificity issues, but it doesn't solve any other problem that you're facing. It doesn't solve any of the other challenges with CSS. So it's either one of these two things. Every page builder on Earth that I've ever used, except for Etch, encourages this. This is what they give you out of the box. And you will hear people that try Etch for the first time. They're met with this little message that says, add a selector to get started. And a very common reaction to that is, I wish I didn't have to do that. I wish that Etch would do this, which is randomly generate me a class name so I can start willy-nilly. Let's just do willy-nilly class name so I can do willy-nilly styling. Does this sound like a systematic approach to web development? What this does is it creates problems. It creates problems, okay? So we said, no, let's not create problems. Because here's the thing, you would never do this ever in any project, in the history of web development. You would never go into CodePen and go H1, you would need like some section, okay? Some section, right? Some section right here. And I'm gonna do the simplest section on earth, okay? Apparently I can't type today. I mean, look at this. This doesn't even help me in a lot of regards, okay? My heading, and it's like, okay, I need to style my section. Do you think somebody's gonna go in and go, class equals section? Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Fucking never are they gonna do that. Nobody. So why do page builders do this? Why is that the workflow they chose? You know why? You know why? I'm gonna give you the answer of why they did this. Because they think you're too dumb to know what a selector is and to be able to add one yourself. Because Kevin, that takes insight. I mean, that takes a little bit of knowledge. I mean, that takes a little bit of, we can't have people learning, Kevin. They wouldn't use our product if they had to learn. They would go use some other product if they had to learn. So let's just treat them like idiots. Let's generate the selectors with meaningless names, and let's encourage them to do all the wrong things. That's what they do. That's what every page builder on planet Earth that I've ever interacted with does. And you should feel insulted by that. You should feel absolutely insulted by that. Okay? Okay. So we have to figure out what are the names of the classes going to be. Well, it's not like this is not a problem that's already been solved in the world of web development. This BEM, so let's go back to here, Figma. Let's go back to BEM. BEM solved this problem in like 2004 or something. It's been around forever now. And BEM just said, let's just understand the structure of a page as blocks and elements. So you have a block like your hero section, and then parts of that will be elements. And we're gonna use a naming convention that is very, very simple. Block, that's the block class, like hero, okay? I'll translate this for you in just a second. Element, this syntax rules everything. That's it, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. For the most part, I mean, there's the modifier part, the M, okay? But the modifier part is very rarely used, okay? So how would this translate? You have a hero section, you could call it hero. It has a heading, do that. This is the only syntax you need to know to organize your classes. Because if you've ever opened a project where people did not have a naming convention for their classes, it's a disaster. I mean, you can have random names, then you can have essentially names somebody came up with no system. One is slightly better than the other, both are dumpster fires, okay? You've got to organize. You have to have a systematic approach, or these projects will get completely unmanageable. Completely unmanageable. Now, again, there's an intellect problem in some people where they go, well, that's why I don't use the class. I just use the page builder like Elementor, Kevin. And okay, you've styled everything at the ID level. You have no global control over it. It's still a disaster. The whole thing is, it's even more of a disaster. And you've got specificity issues. I mean, why are we even entertaining this? They just need to stop talking, okay? Let the adults handle the conversation. This is all you need to know to keep all of your selectors organized, okay? Okay, so the problem with this is, look at this. That's a lot of things that need classes. That's a lot of things that need classes. That's a lot of typing. And if you said, Kevin, I don't want to do all that typing, and this is one reason why people are like, well, I just wish you would generate the class name for me. Because I don't want to name things. I don't like naming things. Guys, there's no way around. The only way to control the dumpster fire is to put water on it, okay? Water is your intellect and organization. and a systematic approach. There is no magic pill. Okay, you got to name things. You have to organize the things. AI will be the only magic pill that arrives, because AI, you will be able to say, please organize the structure panel and apply the BEM classes. It'll do it. Great. Fantastic. Now, you're going to have to be okay with the names it comes up with. And maybe you two can work together on, you could coach it on like, hey, here's kind of how I need to name things, or I want to name things, whatever. Okay. But there will be shortcuts. Right now, there is the shortcut of this. Right click, create BEM classes. Now, every single element here has a class. I didn't have to type a single thing other than organize my structure panel in general, which I needed to do anyway. See, the tools, when properly architected, solve common challenges that you run into. That's why you use the tool. See, I didn't randomly generate them. I generated automatically intelligent selector names. That's what I did, okay? But I had to have a little knowledge to do that. I had to know, oh, there's this thing called BEM. Okay, this is a good organization methodology for class names. Oh, this thing has an auto BEM tool. All I have to do is organize my structure panel and click a button and I'm good to go. A little bit of knowledge, okay? But now so many problems are solved. So many problems, very expensive problems, were just solved with just a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of insight, okay? Great. So now we can move on. So I'm gonna go back to Figma, and we have decided tree shaking selector system with BEM, okay? Now, I'm also gonna be using variables as much as I possibly can. I wanna use variables, like a variable first approach. I wanna use variables as much as I possibly can. Now, there's still some other things we could be talking about, but we don't need to talk about them right now. We are free to just start styling. So the first thing that I wanna do here is I wanna get these things side by side. Now, I could display this as a grid, but then I would, my mini GUI is not completely ready yet. So I'm gonna have to know some CSS grid techniques, or I can reach back into the toolbox. Okay, so let's revisit that, because I'm already at a situation where like, all right, I can't just click a button and get to the solution. I don't like typing grid instructions over and over and over again. Is there some other technique in my toolbox that I can reach in there and grab it and pull it out? And it turns out there is, okay? Let's get this concept of recipes in here. And we're gonna use recipes maybe a couple times in here. So what is a recipe? A recipe is like a snippet of code that is pre-done. It's like, hey, you wanna bake the same kind of cake over and over and over again? Here's the recipe. That's why it's called a recipe. Oh, you want to bake the same muffins you baked last Saturday? Here's the recipe, right? You want your donuts to taste like my grandfather's donut? Here's the recipe, okay? So I come in and I might use a grid recipe, like grid 2, for example. And so I just call up the recipe and I get the effect, I get the desired intended effect of the recipe, okay? So again, I didn't have to type CSS. I didn't have to know how to create a 2-column grid. I just knew there's a recipe for that. Let me call up the recipe. And the benefit is that the recipe, when it expands, is attached to the tree shaking selector system, unlike a utility class, okay? See, it's more flexible in the sense that I was able to call it into this specific selector. Now, there is another technique coming, it's not here yet, called mixins. And these kind of overlap with each other, recipes and mixins. And I would be able to achieve the same exact thing by doing something like this. And it's gonna break everything because it doesn't actually exist. But if I did include grid 2 like that, it would do exactly what the recipe did, but it would do it in this black box situation, okay? And recipes can have arguments, you could have, for example, an include auto grid and say 2, right? So you're saying the argument would be 2 columns, 3 column, 4 column, 5 column, whatever. Okay, calling the auto grid recipe, but through a black box with arguments, this is called a mixin. This exists in Sass. It's coming to Etch natively as a parsing system. So that's going to be available soon. Right now, we would just do the recipe of grid 2, okay? Now, I only want that 2-column grid at a specific breakpoint and up. So I'm going to add a media query. And notice, again, we're trying to use tools that help us out, that are intelligent. So when this is greater or equal to, let's say, 1,000, I don't even know what it's supposed to be yet, okay? Now it's automatically responsive because it's only applying the 2-column grid above 1,000 pixels. And we might change that decision later, but that's the decision that we're making right now at the time. But notice what we're doing. We're using BEM, we're writing our CSS, we're nesting, okay? So we talk about nesting now. I have a selector and in the old days, you had to write a media query and then put the selector inside of it because there was no nesting. But now we have nesting, and nesting is far superior because now all of these things, like any other media queries I put in, anything else going on is going to live with this one selector, compartmentalized, that if I folded it and unfolded it, it would go from one line to all the lines. Everything needed for this hero section uniform inner to work lives with that element on its selector. Now, there's a question of, well, Kevin, we can use nesting to do something like this. See that? I changed the style of the inner from its parent using nesting. And this is not normal nesting, this is SAS nesting, but it works in Etch because we built a parser. That's neither here nor there. But if you try to do this in like CodePen, it's not gonna work. So just understand that. So there was this debate because in Bricks, I used to teach, hey, put all the styling at the parent and nest it all. And all the styling for all the children lives in one place at the parent level. I used to teach that in Bricks. I don't teach that anymore. Why don't I teach that anymore? That was the best workflow for Bricks due to limitations with Bricks' interface, which is the same limitation in every other interface other than Etch for the most part, okay? Because now, see, in Bricks, and I don't have the install to go like actually show you, but like if I clicked on this heading, I wouldn't just see the CSS. It would be nested in 3 different panels. I'd have to go find the CSS panel again. And then I click on that, I gotta go find the CSS panel again. Gotta click on this, go find the CSS panel again, okay? And then I don't have a mini GUI. So nothing involved in the visual side of Bricks can help me write CSS. Doesn't exist. Wasn't a solution they came up with. So none of the things that help me here help me there. So it made more sense to just do parent level nesting. But now I have instant access to the CSS every time I click an element. It's way better to put the CSS here. And here's why. It's what I explained earlier. When you see something like a paragraph group and you're like, something's wrong with that group, what do? What is your first thought? Is your first thought, let me go to the parent and find the CSS for it? Or is your first thought, let me click it and find it? Well, your first thought is let me click it and find it. So that's where you should find it. It just makes sense from a workflow perspective, okay? When somebody's debugging, when you share this pattern with somebody else and they're like, I wonder how he did the inner grid. What are they gonna do? They're gonna click on inner and they're gonna expect to fucking see grid instructions. They're not gonna, if they click on inner and don't see anything, then they're like, what's going on here? And now they gotta go click somewhere else and hope it's there. What are we doing? What are we doing now? You don't wanna live that life. You don't wanna live that life, okay? Let's put, by the way, these things are bothering me. Let's put these images in here. I'm just gonna use the same, it doesn't matter what we use. Okay. In fact, it's better to use the same aspect ratio because we're gonna have to manipulate aspect ratio in a little bit. Okay, so let's pause here for a second. Did we skip anything that you're still unclear about? Are we completely lost? Are we, just give me some feedback in the chat. Where are we at? I mean, if you just want to keep going, just say LFG. I'm going up and I'm just looking at the chat real quick. How did that belt feel coming across that ass? Oh boy. It was too good. It's too good. Hey, you should just be thankful the committee let you in. I don't know. I knew Nick Saban. Nick Saban was on the phone calling every friend he has to squeeze y'all in. That's all right, though. One embarrassing loss wasn't enough. You're going to have to take another one in the playoffs. I mean, this is just... It's more entertainment for me. That's it. Okay, everybody says LFG. All right, I think we're good. We're good. Okay. So now I have to solve the problem. It's another problem with this layout. You got this situation right here. Okay, we've got a big image next to two smaller images. Typically when this occurs, you know, we probably want some sort of grid situation happening here. So if I did grid 2 again, what would happen? Well, it would put them like this. Notice I just called up a recipe. I didn't feel like typing it. I don't want to type it, okay? Nobody wants to type that. Even if you know how to type it, you don't want to. And it's way faster to not do it, right? So let's call up a little recipe, make that happen. Now I could go to the figure, okay? The image wrapper. Remember, the image wrapper is the direct child. Let's collapse these. So you have direct children of the image group. That's like, you see an image. And this is why you have to know what you're doing in web development, right? Like, you see an image and you're like, I want the image to do this. That's how Bev would describe it. But the developer knows, no, you can't do that kind of stuff to the image because it's in a wrapper. It's in a figure element. Now, figure is the thing that you need to actually, even though you can't see the figure, we know it exists. And that's the thing that you have to manipulate, okay? So you could come in here, I'm pretty sure, like grid row. And if we did span, let's do our grid row 1. Yeah, see what's gonna happen here? I'm affecting all of them, okay? And this gets into like knowing what you're selecting. Knowing what you're selecting. One good way to know what you're selecting, I've shown this a million times, is to just throw a border on it. Just throw a red border on the select, see what happens. See what happens if you're not sure, right? So we can see that we're selecting all of them. All of them. I only want to select the first one. So now this kind of brings us into nesting territory, right? Understanding the idea that so much can be done with nesting. So if I do a me selector, right? I call this the me selector. Other people will be like the ampersand selector, isn't that like and like that? No, I don't know. It's, to me, what it selects is this thing right here, right? The me selector, right? And I do in child, and I just say 1, okay? Like I just want the first one. And then you go back to border 5 pixel solid red. And you can see now suddenly, instead of selecting all of them, we have only selected the first one. And this lives with the image wrapper. This lives with the image wrapper. That's very, very, very important, okay? Grid column, span 2, okay? Would get us a shape like this. So what we're gonna do is manipulate the grid to get whatever shape we want, okay? But what we found out is, hey, I am able to make a little grid out of this. Next thing I want to control probably is my gap situation here, okay? I can manipulate how that grid looks, but that's inconsequential to the overall layout that we're doing. We have bigger fish to fry, like, can we get this to touch the edge of the screen? Can we make sure it's all mobile responsive? Okay, we're just working our way to the solution. Another challenge that we have to solve is this situation over here with like a giant gap between this group and this group. So we already have gaps in place. Gaps are already in place. Why? Why is there, did everybody like question, why are there spaces between these things? Because you didn't see me put a gap in here. There's no gap declared. Well, that comes from this. Remember I said this solves so many problems, so many questions, just solves them out of the box. It put a gap between them, right? Now I can go in here on this image group and I can click the gap button, which is right here, okay? And I can, it's already content gap, I think, which is why it's like, it's the same. What if I did 5M? Well, that's a much bigger gap. And see, one thing people see when automatic CSS adds content gap automatically, they're like, well, I don't want that. I don't want that gap. Well, guess what? Guess what, Joe? It adds it with 0 specificity. So you can do any gap you want to. It doesn't prevent you from doing what you want. It just gives you the helping hand of, you have content. Content needs gaps. We have a contextual variable called content gap, so it all makes sense to everybody. And you can change it at any time. And we apply that automatically so that you don't have to, because it saves you a lot of time. If you have to override it, those instances where you would override it, in this case, I want half of the content gap. Okay, so I would call for the gap again, and I would say divided by 2. Okay, and we got to put that in a little calc. Boom, and now I get half of my content gap. See, nothing stopped me. Nothing stopped me from doing that. Just because I have a framework. Like people are, the framework's too restrictive. I like to build custom. Dude, all I do is build custom. The framework is designed to do custom development. Like, can we stop talking before we know anything? It's so exhausting, so exhausting. Okay, so now let's solve the next problem. We need to get this content spaced out right here. Well, it's already got a gap, okay? So why don't we do a flex column, and why don't we come down here and say space between? And suddenly, that seems to be pretty well solved. Did that with the mini GUI, right? We need our H1s to be bigger, okay? Let's go to typography, let's go to H1, and I wanna override this. I wanna see, what does 68 pixels look like, and maybe 32 on the bottom side, okay? There you go. Solved by, remember, like I said, anytime you wanna do it, you can do it. So this is my new very large hero heading. Okay. Oh my God, look at that. It's not allowing an orphan. Did you guys see that? This is my new hero. It just reshuffles the words. How is that happening? That's called text wrap balance. And once again, the framework is doing that for you, because the framework is like, you probably don't want orphans in your headings and text, okay? So we'll just fix that for you as you go, right? Now, if you want to override that, you can come down here to default text wrap, balance, wrap, pretty, balance, inherit, whatever you want to do, okay? But by default, it's balanced because that's what most people want. They want them balanced. So look at a problem that was solved without any thinking on my part. Just somebody had already thought about that and it was just solved for me. Thank you. I'm just going to keep moving off my life. Okay, so this is going to say primary action because we're trying to keep it nice and generic. It's already got a £sign as the link. Somebody was looking for the button element. It's not like, to call anybody out or anything, but they were like, how do you make a button? How do you make a button in Etch? Well, we could make a button element down here, but here's what we thought. I'll lead you through our thought. And I know we're a little out of CSS land here, but it's still important, right? So they were like, I wish I could turn this into a button. Well, the reason it's not sitting here is because if this did say button, lots of people would click it. And lots of people would put buttons on the page when that is not appropriate. So we have links, which are navigational items, and we have buttons, which are action items. If you're gonna fire a modal, you need a button. If you're going to do any other action like this that exists on this page, you're gonna reshuffle a grid or sort something or whatever. Those are buttons, not links. If you're gonna navigate somewhere like to a primary action, like this would take you to the pricing page or the sign up page or the whatever, that needs to be a link. Links are used far more than buttons. Now the problem is, look at this, words. The problem is words. People would describe that as a button because it looks like a button, but it's not actually a button, okay? It's not actually a button. So now what? Because people want that. And in their mind, that translates to button. So they're going to go hunt for button. But no. You don't want button, okay? And the difference is this. href equals, put a pound sign in there, link, okay? Button. We shouldn't write link because that's not accurate. This is the difference between the two. That is not a trivial difference. That is a very important distinction. Very, very important. You cannot just willy-nilly use one or the other. Very important. So we said we're going to give people a link because that's what they're going to need most often. Even when a link looks like a button, it's still a link, okay? So this still needs to be a link. And if somebody is intelligent enough, not intelligent, that's not the right word. If somebody is learned enough to know they need a button, I bet they know how to make a button. Just let them make a button. Because you could make a button out of anything. I mean, you could make a button out of this. You could literally come in here and go, this is now a button, and get rid of the href. You could make it out of a text element. You could make it out of a div. You could make it out of anything you want to. Because go back to something else, another fundamental lesson that I taught, which you should always remember the phrase of, because it unlocks the door to understanding a lot of what's going on, and that is everything is a box. Everything is a div, a section, a container, a button, a link, a heading, a paragraph. They're all just boxes. That's all they are. They're just boxes with semantic instructions. But at the end of the day, they're all a box. Anything can morph into anything else, okay? Because they're all a box. You just change the label of the box. That's it. Okay, let's take this class off of here because we need to talk about that class in just a second. Hero section uniform CTA. That's good right there, okay? I don't want this to be a button. Let's just delete this thing. Let's get our link back. That was much easier. Okay, so let's say primary action. There you go. There's our link. We're all good. They were also concerned with the fact that these are full width. That is a side effect of display flex, okay? Where if you don't have an aligned start, it's going to stretch automatically. It just stretches the default of display flex. So you should know that. You can align things to the start to solve that problem. You can put a inline size on here. Like for example, this was hero section uniform __ CTA, okay? If you did an inline size of max content, it will hug itself. It will no longer be full width, okay? And then you want to do a max inline size of 100%. These are, again, there's no escaping understanding fundamentals of what we're doing. Nothing in Elementor is going to save you. Nothing in Divi is going to save you. Those tools are only going to give you a false sense of confidence and lead you into disaster scenarios. They are going to facilitate bad work. That's all they're going to do. So, we shouldn't run to those as the alternative solution. Okay. Sweet. So what are we doing next? We got this to work. By the way, let's check what we got so far. Look at how the space between solves itself on mobile. Isn't that fantastic? But I still had a gap, so it doesn't collide. That's nice. And the grid already stacks itself. That's nice as well. Okay, so next thing we're gonna solve is let's get this to touch the edge of the screen. And then we might handle this gap a little bit differently as well because that content, it's not looking exactly like like this. This is a much narrower, what I'll do is draw this for you, much narrower container, right? Okay, so we're gonna have to solve for that as well. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this extend to the edge of the screen. Holy smokes, that is not as easy as it sounds. Especially if others, now in this section, it would be kind of easy, okay? But we don't know what else is gonna happen in this section. We don't know if another container needs to go below this at some point in time. like with a row of testimonials in it, perhaps. We don't know if something else has to go above it at some point in time. So we want to try to do this the most flexible way possible. There is a technique that's really, really, really good for this, because remember, we have to maintain content alignment on the left side. You cannot, because we don't want to get a scenario where this left side's not lined up with the content in other sections or the header or whatever else is happening around it. So you've got to maintain content alignment on the left side. We only want the breakout to happen going this way, okay? And a really good technique for this is content grid. Content grid used to be done with a utility class called content grid, okay? But I'm going to delete that. We decided, and this is going to get back into philosophy now, of how these techniques are applied and where they live, okay? Content grid was a utility class supplied by this, the framework, automatic CSS, okay? And it had controls. If you went to layout and you went to content grid right here, okay? You could default sections to content grid. You control the feature width, the feature max width, all that good stuff. You could still control those globally from here, but we applied the technique differently. We now apply the technique with a recipe, okay? So we can do content grid, and I expand it. And you can see that this is a very complex little scenario here. And I did find out the problem with the padding inline was related to specificity of default Gutenberg styles. It's a layer issue. We fix it by turning off the layer, okay? Because there's no other way to fix it until Gutenberg gets its shit together. So this should be good to go now for the most part. There's one other additional thing that I fixed that's not in this version, but this should still work for us fairly well. So when I do content grid, and there's a whole documentation on content grid, I now can take this inner, the only direct child of the parent that has content grid. And what we can do is maybe it'll help you to go inspect this. So if I click on grid, this is what is happening here. Okay, so here's our section, and here is our grid lines. Now they're actually named grid lines. They're not numbered. That's it's a setting in here. I never know how to do it, how to turn it on. You can turn on the names instead of the numbers for named grid lines, but it creates zones essentially. And one of the zones, okay, let's go in here and let's go and say grid column and say full. One of the zones is full, to where this now goes edge to edge, okay? One of the zones is feature max, where it goes wider than content width, 2 steps wider. Another zone is called feature, but you can also combine the zones together, where you do content and then you do full. And it's gonna start at content and go full to the edge of the screen, okay? And I still see the bug is still here. I think I thought the layer thing, turning it off. Let me make sure it's off in this install. Layer controls, default styles, buttons and links, icon framework. Should be doing it. I think we can solve it by padding inline important. Let's try that and see. There we go. Okay, that'll solve it for right now. So essentially, we have just a recipe and one line of CSS. We have content alignment, edge to edge from that point forward, okay? Now we have a new problem of this is clearly too wide. So how are we gonna solve that? So we're gonna go in here, again, element level CSS. I have a problem with this element. Let me go write CSS on that element. Did you notice I didn't have to open a style sheet? I didn't have to scroll up and down. Oh, where's the content wrapper in the style sheet? Where is, no. Stop living that life. You don't live that life anymore. You click the element, you see the CSS, that's it. Done deal, and it tree shakes for you and it exports for you. All problems are solved. Magic, okay? This is a new era of CSS. And I have little buttons that allow me to visual style right here, okay? What could be better? Nothing. The answer is nothing. Okay, I'll give you the answer. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to decide, do we want to change the grid that we created, or do we just want to limit the width of this wrapper, perhaps? Okay, like I could do a max inline size, which is just max width. It's just max width, and we do like something like 30 characters or 40 characters. again, if you know what you're doing, you can pull out little techniques like this, where it's like, oh, why would you use rem there? Why would you use im? Why would you use pixels? Why not use what's relevant to text, which is a character count, okay? So I pull out max inline size 40 characters. Now, how does that behave on mobile? Well, not so fantastic, not so fantastic, okay? So we got to decide, is that still the technique we want to use? Or do we want to maybe make an adjustment to the technique? Well, we can do an adjustment to the technique, right? I could come in here and say, add a media query greater than or equal to 1,000 and put that max inline size. See, I just nudged it, right? Nudged it down to where it only applies up there. Oh, and I'm seeing, you know what? That content grid situation, that whole content, look at this. I can unfold and fold to make it manageable. I don't think I need that except when we're above 1,000. Isn't that the only place I really needed that whole content grid situation? Now I'm not bothered by the content grid anymore on mobile. Just sticking that inside a media query real quick solved most of my problems. Now remember, it had a grid column instruction on it right here. Let's go there. Notice I'm previewing a breakpoint, but I can still see all the CSS. Unlike in every other visual builder where you would have to choose a cute little icon preset. Oh, nope, got to go back to my desktop to see what I wrote for desktop. Can't see all that at once. Why would you want to see all your CSS at once? That's what a diabolical idea. Let's go to the inner right here, okay? Grid column, content full. I don't have to worry about that. It'll just be ignored. It'll just be ignored. The browser won't do anything with it. So essentially, we've got our responsive situation. Everything looks good. I worked my way to a scenario using a combination of techniques. Let's go back. I used the tree shaking selector system. I used BEM, okay? But actually, I used a secondary technique to help me because I don't like to type called auto BEM. I used variables where it made sense. I used recipes, and soon I will use mix-ins when they're available. What did I not use? No utility classes. No utility classes. Didn't need scope. Oh, wait, we're not done. Let me do the button because we need to talk about this right here. Mini framework, all right? So we're gonna go to this, a challenge. We have another challenge. Local styling for common complex patterns like buttons, cards, generalized patterns, overlays, icons, forms. These things show up over and over and over and over again. I would encourage you to read this article right here. I'm going to go to this site. I'm going to come down. Let's find it. A CSS framework is required for maintainable web design. This is one of the most knowledge-giving articles for trying to understand a framework, its value, okay? You should definitely read this because it walks us through the scenario we're about to look at. Style this link into a button. Here is a link, and I give you a link, okay? This is the same link that we're staring at right here. And it says, you need to make that link look like a button. Here's one method you might try. Now, what method is this, guys? Inline styles. Holy smokes. We've heard those are bad. We don't want to do those. Yeah, that would be a disaster. Especially inline styles with no tokens. Holy crap. You are an absolute just marauder. You are just marauding over the landscape of web development, leaving destruction and death in your wake. I mean, this is about as bad as it could possibly get. Okay, so I explain, here's a more traditional approach. We create a class called button and we map some styles to it. okay? Again, you know, we can see the person here has no idea what they're doing. Just absolutely raw dogging this poor button, okay? So we come down here, look at a third approach. Holy smokes, what's going on here? Well, this is Tailwind. This is Tailwind. This is what you would see. Pi 2, Pix 4, color this. No underline, rounded MD, leading none, okay? And this is just for a very simple button. I mean, you got to look at a complex button. You will look at, I mean, just potentially 20 lines of this, okay? Called a utility first approach. We're going to go in, right? What happens if you need to support a secondary button style? Okay, we go into more challenges. Man, how are you even going to name these things? Are you going to do button and then alt separately? Are you going to do button dash alt? How about button double dash alt? How about button and then button double dash alt? How about button and then button single dash alt? How about button then a data attribute? I mean, you could just go on. Howard, look, there's pros and cons to all this stuff you got to think about here, okay? Then we talked about the static color rev, and then, okay, you're going to do colors. What are you going to name these things? And this is why people go, man, I prefer a framework where I can control the names of everything. Why? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you that you want to go through all of this thinking and all of these scenarios and all of these pros and cons, and then you want to deploy this on 5 to 10 projects before you realize that was a bad fucking idea? And now you got to refactor though? What are you going to refactor? No, I'm just going to change it going forward. Oh, okay. And you're just going to have project. It's named this over here. It's named that over there. What absolute chaos. They go, ACSS is too opinionated. You know why? Because if it's not opinionated, it's not a framework. Because it's not consistent. Because everybody can't learn it. You try to onboard people who know automatic CSS, they jump right into action. You try to onboard somebody and got to go, well, I mean, we do our own thing here, you know? Let me teach you our own ways. Well, I mean, that's 3 weeks of learning curve right there, down the drain. For what reason? None, right? Because there's all the way you could do. I've seen that people do this. I've literally watched people go, I like to create my own names, Kevin. And then they go put in var mint. And then I go, quick question from the gallery. What happens when you rebrand and that color is no longer minty looking? Okay. And then they go, fuck. Yeah, exactly. Why don't we stick with the conventions that are tried and true, because people have already run into these scenarios before. We already know all the pros and cons. We already know where the problems are. We already know what's good and what's not good. Okay. I've seen people do this, color 1 and color 2. You come back 6 months later, which one do you need? I don't know. It's a guessing game now? There's so many pros and cons. Then they do this numbered system. It's just there's so many rabbit holes and pitfalls that you can fall down, okay? So we keep going down, just read it, right? I would just, yeah. And that's, again, my point of this. Says it right here. I just spent 1,600 words talking about maintainable button CSS. We haven't even gotten into the hundreds of other scenarios that are very similar, okay? Now, a button, an icon, a form, a card, these are things that actually require like mini frameworks, like frameworks inside of the framework, okay? And that's where we come in, and instead of doing all of that nonsense, you go, well, I just bought this thing called ACSS. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move on with my life. There's my primary button right there. And if you have any qualms about like, well, Kevin, I like to make custom buttons. Yeah, so do I, Jack. So do I. Nothing stopping you from making custom buttons, okay? Just please understand that we thought it through a little bit further than that. We didn't give a solution where it's like, well, there's a button, you just can't do anything with it. Like, come on. Have a little faith, Jack. Have a little faith, all right? In your boy. Have a little faith, all right? So that's it. So there's buttons. And by the way, you can go in here and you can go to buttons. I mean, Here's all the things you can do out of the box. Here's all the styles for primary. You got your hover styles in here. You control everything. You go into here, you can have light dark variants. You can have outline variants. Like somebody would be like, well, Kevin, I prefer outline buttons. But I want a solid and an outline. I bet you haven't thought of that yet. Yeah, Jack, we didn't think of that. We never thought about that. You're right. Okay, so have a little faith. Stop making assumptions and read the documentation. How about that? All right, so let's go to our next challenge. Hopefully all of this is coming together for you. So here we have this situation, right? I said cards, buttons, forms, mini framework. Drop it, pull it out of the toolbox, problem solve, move on with your life. You don't need to think anymore, okay? Externally controlled local styling like a component or JavaScript. JavaScript has to manipulate the styling of an element when something happens, okay? What do we do there? Well, let's go back to our toolbox. Oh, by the way, we threw nesting into here, okay? A lot of techniques went into the local styling area. Well, we're gonna take inline styles out of here. We're gonna take data attributes out of here. I'm gonna take both of these things. I didn't want an arrow between them. And I'm gonna drop these in this bucket right here. Now, you may have heard inline styles not so good. Well, actually, there is a scenario where inline styles are very good, very good. And we'll talk about that right now. So instead of making that, we'll go Content Hub and we'll make a new page and we'll say card, okay? And we'll create pages, we'll go to card. Now we're on the card page. Unified development environment for the win. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we are gonna make a card. We'll call this my card. Bad name, don't name it like this. Don't name it like this. Don't do what I'm doing. I'm just doing it so we can move quickly and not have to, like, we're not actually gonna use it for anything. So I don't know what to name it. So my card heading, we'll say description and we'll say action. We'll just keep it nice and simple. Create BEM classes. Oh my God, it styled itself. Holy crap, what is going on here? What is going on? Well, I'm already targeting something called my card in the card framework. So there's a mini framework in here called the card framework, okay? Recently refactored, there's the card selector, my card. Let's take off that selector because we wanna start from scratch. Okay, so the card framework is no longer auto styling our card situation here. All I wanna do is I wanna control the background color of the card. And I'm gonna make this a little component, okay? So we can start with a background color. And let's say our background color is going to be neutral, ultralight. Let's just keep it very, very, very basic. And I can see now that I've added a background color, we're gonna need some padding. Now, I can just click the padding button and I get var space M. But what I actually want is maybe card padding. I can still use my mini framework manually. I don't have to. And by the way, we're already thinking about mini GUI situation where it knows I'm selecting a card. And so when I click padding, it offers card padding. It offers card gap. It offers card border radius. It offers like whatever, you know? It could get that intelligent, right? Could get that intelligent. If you wanted to, okay, so I wanna change the background color of this card. Now, let's talk about generalized CSS here, okay? Because it is helpful to understand the concept of locally scoped variables in this situation. If I write background color again, you know, what is gonna happen here? It's gonna be red. There are two competing things. Whatever comes last, this is why it's called a cascade. Cascades from top to bottom. Whatever comes last wins. So if I bump red up, so it's first, it doesn't win. If I bump it down, it wins. Consequently, if you do an inline style, which you can do in this add selector bar because etch is fantastic. If I do this here, it's gonna win because inline styles beat these styles over here. Inline styles always win, okay? But what I'm doing here is I'm overriding the property. And really what I wanna do, I wanna try to avoid that if possible. I just wanna override the value here, okay? because I can do specificity tricks at that point to still manage my specificity and not have this just creaming my entire element here, okay? So what I would rather do is something like this, where I set the background color to something like BG. And I would actually do just background by itself. This is what I prefer to do. I like background. And then you see var BG, and that doesn't do anything clearly, okay? But I can do fallbacks in variables by doing a comma and a value, and I can still get the red. And you can see this when you inspect something. Let me go to the correct page. It will tell you, I can't zoom in, that BG is not defined and that it's using red as the value because that's the fallback because BG doesn't have a value. So variables don't actually need values. Like they won't break, especially if you provide a fallback, okay? If you don't provide a fallback, they'll just do nothing. They won't break your site. They just won't do anything, okay? But then what if I give a value of BG here, okay? It works, right? Actually, I could say blue. Let's not do red. Let's make sure it works by doing some other ridiculous color. Okay, so I can do style BG blue here. Now here's the thing. JavaScript can't change this. JavaScript can't change style sheets. But JavaScript can append things to elements, attributes, like inline styles, like data attributes, okay? So there's two approaches here. This would be the open-ended kind of let them do anything approach. You could use a data attribute to do a much more maybe controlled scenario type of approach. But let's just see how this would work in a component situation, okay? So I'm gonna right click, create a component, create a prop called BG, give the default of red, okay? Copy that key. I'm gonna go in here. We can take BG out altogether. I can add my inline style, because I think I deleted it. Yep, style, okay? And I could say, let's go BG, and then we want props.bg, this thing right here, this prop, to be the value. I'm back to where I was. The only difference is I can exit, and I can say that this is anything, okay? Blue, pink, Rebecca purple. Now let's go to the front end. What's happening here? Background is set to var BG. You can see the value is Rebecca purple, and it's telling you that's coming from an inline style, element.style. The value of BG is Rebecca purple. Pass through a prop. Very flexible, very flexible. So anybody that tells you inline styles are bad, never use them. No, they're bad in a lot of scenarios, but the never use them part is inaccurate. You should definitely use them. You should just use them strategically and intelligently, okay? So that's where we might pull. There's some scenarios here, some challenges where we need to do externally control the local styling. And that was with a prop, but it could have been with JavaScript after I click a button, okay? Inline styles, data attributes, these are techniques we pull in when we need to do some fancier stuff, okay? But notice that it's still done. Where is all that still happening? It's still happening at the element level using a tree shaking selector system, using BEM, using nesting, okay? Using locally scoped variables, combined with the mini framework of a card framework that I'm already doing to do a bulk of the work and keep things consistent, okay? I'm trying to help tie all these things together. When do you do this? Where do you do this kind of stuff, okay? Specific but common problems. What happens when you have a sticky header and the content offset is wrong? What happens when you need to apply accessibility techniques like clickable parent, focus parent, hidden accessible text, placing elements in the background, layout challenges like we talked about with content grid, with fancy grids, auto grid, variable grid, color shades, transparencies, color scheme, complex CSS scenarios. What techniques do we pull out here? Well, once again, this solves all those problems. Instant. I don't have to think about it. I don't want to think about all that, Jack. I got a framework. It's already got all the solutions for all those scenarios that I'm going to run into. And it might be a recipe-based solution. It might be a utility class-based solution. It might be just a dashboard click, click, click solution. It could be any number of solutions. But the solutions are there. And anytime I run into those common, specific problems, I already know there's an answer worked out for it. And I just apply the answer and I move on with my life. Now there's another scenario here, animation. CSS is handling more and more animations these days, but you've got frameworks for animation, okay? But you also, I just want to make a little point here, because if you look at my projects and you go to the style sheets area in my projects, you will see essentially almost nothing here. Nothing here. Except in certain scenarios, you might see something like this. There may be an animation style sheet, and there may be things like keyframes, okay? And this is because keyframes can only live in a global style sheet. They cannot live at the element level. They cannot live in a tree shaking selector system. They have to live in a global style sheet by force. We have no other choice, okay? Or like an inline style block. Okay, but we're not doing that. So this is really the only, so like, if you want to look at how was a project really done in a very, very efficient, intelligent, smart way, go to their global style sheets and see if they're basically empty. Like, that would be a good indicator, you know? Because you want to try to do as little here as possible. As little here as possible. If you're having to do a lot there, you should question your tactics. You should question your approach. Okay. I want to make sure we cover the, if you need a utility class for something like content grid. So remember we did, let me just show you. Let's go back to where we were earlier. We were on the sample page, I believe. There we are. So here's this content grid, but I am going to show you a problem with utility classes. But let's say you're going to use content grid in a gazillion places and you're like, man, I don't want to have to keep using that recipe over and over and over again. Now keep in mind, it's only going to duplicate the CSS if you use those scenarios on the same page. If you're not going to use them on the same page, it's already tree shaking. So it's not going to duplicate the code. It's only going to use it in that one instance you asked for it in. But if you are going to use it in multiple sections on the same page, you would probably not want to duplicate the code. You would probably want to use a utility class. And this is where people are going to be like, Kevin, damn you, you got rid of the content grid utility class. Okay, well, here's why. So you go to Style Manager, you go to Style Sheets, you add a style sheet called Utilities. Did I spell that right? Utilities. There you go. And you do this. Content grid, utility class. Congratulations, sir. You just made a utility class, okay? All right, Daryl, you got a utility class now. Now, you saw the problem with utility classes is I intelligently applied content grid inside of a media query. You can't do that with utility classes without some other shenanigans, right? So you would have to go to your utilities and you would have to do a content grid. And now you're in a naming scenario that you didn't really want to be in. But there was no solution for this before. Like 1,000 up? What the fuck? I don't know. Like, because it's not even, there's no breakpoint presets anymore because they don't even make any sense. Okay. But you could do this at media and then you're going to do your, whatever syntax you want, right? Width is greater than 1,000 pixels. Okay. You could do greater or equal then. And then you put in your content grid. And congratulations, you made a utility class that only applies content grid at 1,000 pixels and up, all right? You're free to do this. if you really want to do that. You don't have to, but you're free to. But the point is that we didn't know you needed one for 1,000 and up, right? So that was never going to be supplied to you to begin with. But we did give you a recipe that gives you tremendous flexibility for doing that kind of thing. So recipes can be converted into utility classes, which is why we don't need a library of defaults that you shouldn't be using in the first place unless you really, really, really have decided that you need them because of XYZ scenario. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, you're using ACSS for global styling, so yeah, it's empty, still have a big global style. Yeah, but that's not what I was referring to. I was referring to the idea that I didn't have to do all of that. It was done for me, right? And it's done for me in a way where automatic CSS is a 0 kilobyte capable framework. That if I go in and turn off everything, it will output 0 KB. It will output a blank style sheet. And I can go in and control every set of variables that I might want or need. I can turn them off. Now, what I will tell you is now that this is refactored in 4.0, it is so absurdly small that you could literally just turn on everything and it is not going to make any difference whatsoever. It's not going to make any calculable difference. So, because we got rid of all the big libraries of utility classes and all that, it's literally, it is a BEM first, variable first framework where a lot of the complex stuff that was happening in utility classes is now in recipes, and the recipes don't exist until you bring them into reality by calling them, right? It is an insanely lightweight framework. So you just install it, turn it on, and use it, and don't worry about it. It's not going to impact anything. I admittedly get confused. I'm going to go to questions now. I think we've kind of done the overview about how things should work, how they work back in the old day, how they should work now, pros and cons of various scenarios. No approach is 1,000% perfect. It's all a matter of pros and cons and understanding upsides and downsides. And what I think I've put together and taught, which by the way is based on long-standing techniques, class first workflow, long-standing technique, 1990s, BEM, early 2000s, long-standing technique. Variables should be obvious. Recipes, we innovated recipes. We brought recipes to the modern development workflow. First in automatic CSS, then in Etch. Mini GUI, we innovated that. Right-click context menus. You didn't see any right-click context menus for styling, for shortcuts to styling in any visual builder until Chris created an add-on for automatic CSS that did it. There might be some obscure platform that was doing it, but I don't know what the name of it would be. I didn't see it anywhere till Chris came along with it, okay? Then I bought it from Chris and brought Chris onto the team. Then you started seeing it come out other places. So this is a looking at, God, what are the problems that we continue to run into over? You never saw, let's just keep this in mind. This right here never existed. A UI for controlling the framework with real-time preview and instant regeneration and just go inside of the framework. There was no framework with fluid responsive typography, fluid responsive spacing based on math scales and all the other stuff that's going on here. There were no frameworks that were auto-generating shades, allowing you to customize every single shade in a UI while you watch it change on the page. None of that existed. What we've done with surfaces and overlays, what we've done with ISBG, what we've done with a border system and a divider system, the card framework, the icon framework, these don't exist anywhere else. Clickable parent, focus parent, frameworking those things. AutoVar, AutoCalc. The list goes on and on and on and on. Let's answer questions. Yes, it was called, Chris's add-on was called Plaster at the time. Yeah, that's the thing is people are like, well, you just want to sell your system. Like the system was created through the process of solving every real common challenge we face in the work that we do. It's the natural evolution of modern workflows that nobody else was doing. Because we're doing it in an environment where every other solution has the wrong avatar in mind. Element or Divi, Beaver, did all of these tools, Bricks even, they can't engineer these things because they're too busy trying to dumb everything down. They're too busy trying to auto-generate IDs because you're too much of an idiot to know what a selector is. That's what they're engineering dumbassery. We're trying to engineer actual working solutions for people with brain cells that connect to each other, okay? And it's just a fundamentally different approach and philosophy with fundamentally different answers. And you see one makes total sense and the other is a nightmare. A good product solves challenges in unique and innovative ways. And so it's so intellectually dishonest to when somebody looks at problems and goes, man, there's just got to be a better way to doing this. And then they create a better way. It was like, again, I like to use the horse to the car or the phone to the smartphone. We had home phones. They seem to work fine. And this is what, I just love the people when like the iPhone comes out. There's those fucking boomers sitting around just going, I mean, this plastic phone, it's ring, works just fine for me. Shut up, boomer. It's obvious that smartphones were the future, okay? So you could sit around for a year going, oh, this works fine for me. But you're an idiot boomer. That's what you are. Okay? Like you just open eyes, just look. This is where we're going. We're going to a different place. Same thing. How many dummy boomers were like, my horse gets me there just fine. Like, it's just, we don't need that feedback. That's just noise. That's just noise. Stop it. The adults are trying to do important things, okay? I get it. You love your horse, all right? We don't need that feedback. So, what point was I getting at? What point was I even getting at? I think it was just that like you can clearly innovate. Oh, it's the dishonesty, the just abject intellectual dishonesty of I create a smartphone and I sit you down and I go, look at all the shit you can do. You can go on the internet. You could create grocery lists. You could watch videos on YouTube. You're connected to every other device in the world. Look how amazing this is. And you go, you're just trying to sell me on your solution. You just want to sell these phone things. That's what you want to do. And it's like, what? What are you saying right now? You could literally say that about any invention that comes out. Fucking Elon Musk, SpaceX, building rockets. And you go out on the platform and he's like, look where the rocket can take us. I don't even know I don't know that the rocket can take us anywhere. But what if it did? And then you go, you just want to sell rocket rides. That's all you're interested in doing. Like, fuck you. Fuck you. Seriously. That is so insanely dishonest that somebody gives you generous innovation and your conclusion is, oh, you just want to sell stuff. fuck you, for real. Like that is so, it is absolutely insulting. That is the, and it's insulting to the point where it's like, you're just not allowed to talk. Like, we don't have to, you're not a serious person. We don't have to take you seriously. You're a troll, okay? Everybody should see you're a troll. Let's move on. You have nothing to add. You have nothing to say. You have nothing to do. By the way, this is why I always point out, people don't like it when I do it, but I have to, because it's so tremendously insulting. But I do have to point out every single time, oh, okay, why don't I keep doing this and you keep being a nobody? You keep being Joe Schmo 1237, who's produced 0 videos, 0 education, 0 tools, 0 solutions, 0 anything. I'm not even sure you're fucking employed. I'm not even sure you have a single client. Your profile looks a bit blank there, Joe 7543. And the fact that we entertain these people. See, people are upset that I put them in their place on Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is. But the reality of the situation is, it's a problem with moderation of these communities. You go into the Bricks community, no moderation. Oxygen community, no moderation. Full of these fucking pests, just scum, absolute internet scum. That's a problem with you don't see that in the inner circle. Go in the inner circle. There's not gonna be any Joe 7584 talking nonsense. Go into the Etch community, none of them. Go into the ACSS community, none of them. Why? Proper moderation, because we don't tolerate dumbassery. And these other communities shouldn't either. Why do I have to constantly interact with these people? They're not serious people. Delete them. Half of them are anonymous. Get rid of them. Ban, block. Make the community a high quality community so we don't have to put up with this nonsense. And the fact that these people are allowed to give their opinions on shit they clearly have no idea about. They're guiding like beginners come into these communities and ask questions. And Joe 5768 is just talking straight bullshit. Clearly, it's like, what? Get rid of them. Bounce them. You're out. I'm just done with unserious people. It's not you specifically, Curtis. You know, there's some good boomers. I'm not saying all of them, right? But it's a generalized mentality. I mean, it's got to be a stereotype. They're true. It's just like, man, it's boomer energy. So let's just say that it's boomer energy. Because typically, you know, a Gen Z person, for example, or like a millennial, most millennials, you know, some are on the edge, but most millennials are going to look at technological advancements and be like, yeah, I expected that. Yep. That solves some problems. That's fucking great. That's phenomenal. Glad somebody did that. You know, life's going to be so much easier now. Like, that's the general philosophy. You know, I would say, you know, more boomers than not are going to be pessimistic towards that kind of thing. Maybe it's that they feel like they're getting left behind. I don't know what it is, but, you know, it's they think things are moving too fast. I can't keep up. Okay, let's stop innovating. Let's stop. It's just a generalized energy, I think. I don't know. Okay. All right, this was a fun last quarter of the stream. All right, let's answer questions. Now that all the boomers are gone. Okay. Could you revisit the Etch template system overview? I need a little bit more specifics than that. Like I said, scope is, I have not found a good use case for scope. BEM essentially handles the vast majority of scoping by itself. Will the mini GUI support recipes for at least some of them? I think this can be extremely useful in some cases. Yeah, Let me give you, now I edited this. So, you know, any, any UI implications or don't pay too close attention to that. Where am I? Thank you. Thanks, Figma. Yeah. Yeah, let's take a whole business week to load. All right, so here's my sandbox. I'll show you some things I was thinking about. Yeah, problems like this, just ignore. I broke something. I don't know. But here's the more important part, okay? So the right click on class badges where you add a media query, add a container query, whatever, that's gonna move to here. So these will add your, this little at symbol, or yeah, at. My dyslexia confuses at and all the time. You click on this and you're gonna get your, whatever you want your default to be. Left click is a default. Right click would present you with a context menu. I don't know if I whipped one of those up. Did I? I don't think so. No, that was from earlier. Okay. There'll be a right click context menu where you can essentially do the insert media query, insert container query. Now this right here, we definitely need a better icon for it, but this would auto generate any pseudo elements or pseudo classes. So if I right click on this, I would be able to auto generate a before, an after, a hover, a focus visible, a focus, you know, the list goes on, right? So that would auto insert those. And then there will be an icon for recipes as well. So I click on recipes, probably get a list with a search box in it that's dynamically searchable. And you could come up and then insert any rest. You could see all of them, insert the ones that you want by searching for it or just scrolling up and down, however you want to do that. But yeah, that's going to move away from the pill and everything will happen right here. You'll still be able to auto trigger recipes with the question mark, but it won't be the only way to do it. You'll be able to do it with an icon as well. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, Gen X, I, in all fairness, I don't know the order or what I mean, I guess I know the order. I don't know, I'm not an expert on it, you know? So take my criticisms, take my boomer criticisms at, you know, don't take them at face value. Let's see. You guys do like mockups, don't you? Do I have any fun mockups? These are all mine. None of these are very fun. Let's see. Let's go to let's look around in Tommy's here. Or Jeremy's. Let's see what happened. I haven't seen, I heard he did some new stuff to Mini GUI that we might need to take a look at. What we're working on right now is the ability to program custom default values for the Mini GUI options, as well as starting on the right-click context menu and population of what you want your values to be in the right-click context menu. And I was wondering if any of that, I don't know if I'm looking in the right place. That's the new style manager. This looks something like that. I don't know. This does say version 2, but I don't see anything under it. Let's see if it plays. Yeah, I don't think it's ready yet. Oh, hey, yeah. Oh, something's happening. Oh, I went to the wrong place. I do not know what just happened. Not sure it does anything. Let's play here. It's right arrow key. It's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. Can't show you. Okay. You said you were dropping the darker BG on those icons too. Yes, that was already shown. Here is what it would look like. It looks much more native this way. It would get the dark background when you hover or when you've activated it. right? So, but it's much more native this way. Is the mini GUI still super light blue text on white background? No. You just need to do, it was using the color scheme system that's not fully implemented yet. We're just gonna force dark mode in it for right now, and it's gonna fix that, but very soon it will be fully dark light compatible. Okay, let me go back to, let's just make sure no questions got left hanging. I saw a lot of them. When using the style sheet in Etch and applying the class to an element, will you allow Etch to then read the style sheet and add the SS code to the CSS box? No. Well, here's what would happen. And this is a good thing to explain. When you write, like if I did hero section uniform in a style sheet, let me copy this. Okay. Hero section uniform, style manager. This confuses people. Well, I'll do a video on this. We'll have some documentation, okay? Hero section, actually, hero section uniforms right here. So I can just select it. This is part of the tree shaking selector system right here. But if I were to go to style sheets and do hero section uniform and paste all that stuff, okay? Let's save, let's go out. Notice it's working again, okay? But notice this selector's blank. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I just wrote CSS for that selector in a style sheet. Why don't I see it? You don't see it because it's part of a separate system. It's part of a global style sheet. This is the tree shaking dynamic selector system. They behave completely differently. Now, what will happen is you will see all of this in the future as inherited styles, which means they'll be grayed out and they'll be read-only. You'll be able to see what's happening to the selector, but you're not manipulating it because this is not that system. This is not a global style sheet. They're two fundamentally different things. They serve two different purposes. They have two different sets of pros and cons. The con of doing it this way, which is why I said you should not do it this way, this will load the styles for hero section uniform on every single page of your site, regardless of whether hero section uniform exists or doesn't exist on that page. Additionally, if I copy hero section uniform and I go paste it into another Etch install, it'll all fall apart because its styles live external to it. That's the downside of global style sheets. It's always been a downside of global style sheets. You have to understand that outside the world of visual builders, there was never a tree shaking selector system. This is a new phenomena in web development, okay? And it has very unique and powerful advantages. But you got to put the CSS in the right place. We don't put it here. This is not where we do this anymore. This is 2004, 2009, 2014, 2018, 2022 even. 2025 Etch, new system. Much more, let's not say. Okay. It copied the JSON to my clipboard and not the styles. But when I put the things here, thankfully, now it's back. Now this tree shakes. Now this, when I copy and I paste and I go to another, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to paste. When I copy and I go to another Etch install or an Etch user and I go, here you go, and they paste it, it all just works. All the CSS comes with it. All the structure panel is already organized. Everything is magical in there. It looks exactly the same in their system. Any JavaScript that was attached to this element, to hero section uniform, also ships. Any PHP, when we have PHP authoring, any custom PHP for this pattern also ships. Everything is self-contained. Very powerful, very powerful. Have you thought about adding some default section padding in Etch that ACSS overwrites? I have thought about it. but it creates new questions. Notice in the video that I was referring to, again, nothing against the person. This is, I took that video, and it's happened many times. It's not just that one video. I watched it over and over and over again. But I took the video, I literally took the video and I went to Discord and I posted it in our general channels, the entire team. And I was like, this is why we don't do sandboxes. This is why we don't do trials. And I think it's important to explain that. Why can't you get a free trial of Etch? Why can't you spin up a sandbox of Etch? Well, if we spin up a sandbox and a trial with automatic CSS, it's a whole nother layer on top. And now they don't even know, does that layer come with Etch? Is that part of Etch? Is this Etch? What am I looking at here? So that has to be communicated. If you don't ship it with automatic CSS, they have that terrible blank slate that nobody wants to start with. But here's what happened. It's very important to understand this. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go back into WordPress, and I'm going to deactivate. Okay. So this is where somebody would start. And then what they're going to do, and by the way, you see this centered container? He wasn't sure why that was centered and why it was the width that it was. Now, he inspected it and found out that it's content width, but he thought that it needed like at one point he did something and it broke the styles. He did something wrong in CSS, it broke the styles. I was watching on my phone, so it was kind of hard to follow. And he was like, why isn't that container centered anymore? And he was like, oh, it doesn't have the margin inline auto on it. But we don't use margin inline auto, right? And so anytime you do some sort of default that's not obvious, it requires the person to know how to inspect, know how to properly interpret what they're inspecting. But again, what they're going to do is just click around. And then what they're going to do, like they do, you watch them on the video, you can watch this. They like click this instead of hitting Command Enter, right? So they think this requires clicking all the time. It's not already explained to them why there isn't, they immediately go to like, I wish it just auto-generated a selector. We already went over the pitfalls of that. Like that's a tragedy, right? They don't realize you can even put ARIA labels and inline styles and everything else here. They may not realize that you can do, multiple classes at a time plus an ARIA label plus or whatever else you want here all at the same time. There's so much that you don't understand right off the bat. And then you get into the workflow of, I think in his install, the mini GUI wasn't even on, so when he did a hero, now it's on by default. But when he did a hero, he's not met with any helpers. How would you know recipes even exist here? How would you know? So, and what they do is they try to build something simple and it takes them a long time because they don't know the actual workflow. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. He even said in the video, like, hey, I haven't written CSS in a long time because the page builder does it all for me. And so I'm rusty on it, right? And so already we're moving slow because page builders do make you dumber. Like the old page builder, they do make you dumber. Versus like the mini GUI here, when you have it do something for you, you're still seeing the syntax. You're still seeing the properties and values. You're still seeing everything it's doing. You're still touching it. You're still studying it. This doesn't make you dumber. This just makes you faster. So they end up, things are very slow. Of course, how would you just willy-nilly whip up a component with a loop and an object prop and like, what are you doing? Like, what is the sandbox doing? It can only do bad things. It can only make you feel like, this is a blank slate where I have to do everything and I got to write everything and I don't like it. That's the only possible conclusion, that unless you are legit, like you love VS Code Land or whatever, you're a theme developer, a plugin, then, and I brought on Ian. Unfortunately, the audio got doubled. I wish I could, maybe I should put it out with just doubled audio. It was like 3 hours long, but I got on a call with Ian and I was like, hey, I would love for you to just come use Etch for the first time and see. And this is a plugin developer, theme developer, like knows his shit, knows what's going on, knows BEM, knows all this stuff. It was very fun to do because I gave him a couple pointers. I'm like, hey, just hit Command Enter. You can put in your selectors there. You can, at the time, there was no mini GUI. It was just write your CSS, all, use nesting, whatever you want to do. I showed him the JavaScript, the attached JavaScript panel. And it was like 15 minutes of like kind of getting a feel for it. And then he's just like, hold on, can I do this with components? Hold on, what modifiers for dynamic data do you have? And we're into dynamic data modifiers and all that. He's just he's free writing JavaScript in here, trying to make stuff, do stuff. He's having fun. But that's very few people in WordPress. That's a small percentage of people in WordPress. You can't go after the Bricks group, the Elementor group, the Divi group, and go, yeah, we got a sandbox, come on in. They're not gonna know the first fucking thing. They're not. The only thing that can happen is they can have a negative experience. That's the only thing that can happen. And people DM me every day. Kevin, I'm interested in buying Etch. Can I spin up a sandbox? Can I get a free trial or something? And I'm like, nope. You have to know you want it in order to buy it. How about that? Go watch some videos. Go watch me work in it. Go watch somebody else work in it. Go watch Nick work in it. Go watch Sonny work in it. Go watch Kraka work in it. You go watch some videos. When you're ready to buy it, come see me. No, you can't get a free trial. You can't get a sandbox. You got to know you want it. Then you can buy it. How about that? So we're thinking about doing some guided sandboxes. We're thinking about doing some private group sessions, demo sessions, where we get a bunch of people. Hey, let's get 100 people that are interested on a demo. And I'm going to walk them through every single thing that they need to know to get started. And then I might say, okay, here's your sandbox link. Okay. But you cannot just let somebody waltz in the door and click around. They're not going to have a good experience. Not going to happen. This world that we work in and live in is too complex. And now here's the thing. Nobody's going to come to the conclusion. Very few people. I won't say nobody. Very few people are going to come into a sandbox like that, struggle, and be like, I guess it's my lack of skills. Like, that's not the conclusion they're going to come to is this tool's too hard. When clearly it's not. You can work at light speed and it does things that no other tool does. But you got to know what you're doing. And that's why people say, well, Kevin, this isn't for lay people. And I'm like, you're damn right it's not for lay people. It is, however, for beginners. And there is a big, big, big important distinction there. A beginner is somebody who wants to learn and wants to continue doing this work. And if that's the case, Etch is 1000% for you. You should not be in any other interface. You think you're going to learn in an interface that hides the language that you're trying to learn from you and then encourages you to do all the wrong things? How are you going to learn in that environment? We know people don't learn in that environment. I already did a whole breakdown of that. I already had to, unfortunately, show what happens when you spend 7 years in Elementor and, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's just, it's darkness is what it is. It's darkness. So yeah, if you want to learn, you need to learn by looking at the language, working in a tool that facilitates the proper workflows and shows you the output of what you're doing. Now, lay people, they just want a website. They have no intention of doing this ever again. My mom with her Bunko Club, right? Bev's going to take it upon herself to build a company website, right? We're going to give her a shot. Okay. Etch is not for the layperson. Etch is absolutely, it could not be further from the layperson. Okay. It's not for lay people. By the way, though, here's the ace. Here's the ace that everybody has to understand. WordPress.org is not for lay people either. If you are doing any semblance of development in WordPress, you need to be using Etch. There is no well, there's got to be tools for the layperson. No, there doesn't. Because WordPress.org is not for laypeople. There is no onboarding for WordPress. Think about this. I mean, I've gone on this rant before, but it's so important to understand because this ties everything together. There is no place for Elementor, Divi, Beaver, or any of these other tools in WordPress.org. Because to build a site in WordPress.org, one, again, these tools are for lay people. I mean, they will tell you that. Elementor's for everybody. The block editor's for everybody. Divi's for everybody. Beaver's for everybody. Okay. The problem is everybody can't use WordPress, even though WordPress is for everybody. It's just, this is a reality they don't want to accept. This is a head in sand situation. But you put yourself in, I put myself in my mom's shoes all the time. Okay. WordPress for everybody, right? Elementor for everybody, right? Okay. Let's sit her down. Let's sit her down and see how far she gets in a month. Guys, I'll tell you right now, 24 hours would be spent on evaluating hosting, okay? And my mom's analytical, so I would be like, Mom, we're gonna go to rocket.net. I want you to sign up for an account on rocket.net. They got a one-click. She'll, why rocket.net? Well, let me see the pros and cons. And now she wants to evaluate 5 different hosts, and she's making spreadsheets and lists and all this other shit. I'm just telling you the truth about how my mom would handle this situation. But this is how a lot of people handle it. Well, which host do I choose? Well, why that one over this one? Well, that one's $4.99 a month. That one seems good. Why don't we do that one? I mean, you're trying to get me to pay $30 a month. Why do we get $4.99 a month? Why don't You're having the whole fucking conversation, okay? Now we pick a host. Thank God. One box checked. So now we spin up this thing right here. My mom. What are all these boxes for? Right? Mom, okay, you don't need any of these. Let me just hide these for you, Mom. Let me just hide these for you, okay? And just get rid of those. You don't need those. What are all those boxes for? Still there, I should still see them. She didn't actually talk like that, but this is when I feel that's how my brain interprets it when she's talking to me about technical things. Not about everything, just about technical things, okay? She still sees boxes here. All right, now, Mom, don't worry about that. Mom, just stay focused. Stay focused, Mom. So what do I do? What do I do first? Well, let me tell you a little story about WordPress. It's a thing called a content management system. It doesn't actually build websites. So you need a builder. Well, which builder do I? Well, Mom, there's Elementor, there's Divi, there's Beaver, there's this, there's that, right? Now, they might not do everything for you, Mom. So there's this concept of plugin. What's a plugin? Okay, now we gotta go talk about plugins. Well, how do I know which plugin to use? Exactly, Mom, exactly. You know what? I've already jumped off a bridge. How about that, Mom? How about we're on the 3rd floor and I just catapulted myself out the window. Why? Because WordPress.org is not for lay people. It's not for lay people. It's too technical in itself. The theme ecosystem, the plugin ecosystem, there's no onboarding, the hosting, they can't even get to the lay builder. That's how not for lay people it is. So why are we creating lay tools for users that don't actually exist? These people should actually be using Wix and Squarespace and whatever else. It's just not for lay people. WordPress.com even, don't give that man any money, but they need a curated, a highly, heavily curated experience. WordPress.org is not that. So Etch is not for lay people because WordPress is not for lay people. So now we got them out of the way. Who's left? Beginners, intermediates, and advanced people. And guess what? Etch is for all of them. And actually the other tools are inappropriate for all of them. That's what we have to understand at the end of the day. That Elementor is an inappropriate tool. Beaver is an inappropriate tool. Why? Because it facilitates the wrong kind of work and it doesn't teach people, it prevents people from learning. So it doesn't serve beginners because they can't learn properly and it only facilitates them doing the wrong thing. It doesn't facilitate intermediates And it certainly doesn't facilitate advanced work. So this whole concept, let's just make it easy for anybody. Well, you did that on the wrong platform, Joe, whoever you are, creating these products. You did that on the wrong platform. This is not the platform for that. Because anybody can't walk in off the street and even spin up something sensical, right? So that's how the whole picture comes together. Hosting or catching strays over here. But that's the thing is, I have confidence in the community, in the ecosystem. There's a reason we have we have been streaming for 2 hours and 20 minutes. We still have 123 people here. We had 180 people at the peak. We very commonly have 200s and 300s. My highest live stream was unveiling the ACS at the first iteration of the real-time dashboard in ACSS. And that was 900 concurrent live viewers, back when my channel only had like 12,000 subs. But I do this week in and week out, talking about these subjects, teaching these concepts, innovating in ways that you don't see it anywhere else. And that's reflected in the live stream numbers. Now, my subscriber count is real. That's why you look at a channel with 250,000 subscribers or 125,000 subscribers, have them go live on a random Tuesday. They'll be lucky to have 50 viewers. Meanwhile, I've got a fraction of their subscriber count, but am constantly pulling hundreds of live concurrent viewers, and generally the same amount, the same amount of general views on videos. And that's because I asked myself why. I was like, well, are they buying subs? I don't think so. I am not going to assume that they're that low. I think there's a rational explanation that back in the day, because these channels have all been around for a very long time, back in the day, there were Elementor, Divi people, anybody in those ecosystems, or just generalized WordPress, or just generalized web design, especially the clickbaity. If you go back, because you won't find any of this in my channel. You go back and find a thumbnail that says something like, how to build a WordPress website in 5 minutes with 3 clicks. That kind of bullshit. You're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of content tailored to people who don't know anything. And the reality of attracting that audience, because I've gone after a completely different audience. The reality of attracting that audience is that you are going to attract 1,000 people for every person you actually retain. Because most of those people are fly by night, no intention of actually doing serious work, no intention of seriously buckling down and learning a craft, okay? They're just attracted by the shiny object and the promises and the get rich quick and the you can do this, it's so easy, and look how you can clicky in this tool and it comes to life, and all these promises. That attracts thousands, mobs of people, but doesn't retain anybody. Because all those people vanish overnight. They're all ghosts. So this is how a channel that's how my channel, and have 20,000 subscribers and pull 3 times the live stream viewers as a channel with 200,000 subscribers. That's my explanation for it, is congratulations. You attracted a bunch of ghosts. They're no longer here. Look at the list of comments on my videos. I go through their videos. They've got 8 comments, 18 comments, 22. I've got 100 comments. They have ghosts. Their whole tribe is skeletons. And so what I've said is, no. I'm going to make intelligent content for intelligent people. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we actually move web development forward instead of backwards? Why don't we do that? Wouldn't that be a good option? Because I know that, yeah, I'm not going to have 200,000 subscribers, but I'm going to have insanely high retention and insanely high engagement. And I'm also going to have people who are intelligent enough to then go out and also help spread the same exact concepts. And over time, slowly but surely, we're going to reach a tipping point where it's cannot be ignored. And that's what's going to happen with Etch. It's what's going to happen with framework like automatic CSS. It's like jujitsu. It's like jujitsu. I was not a fan of the, white belts will come in. Look at this shit I learned on YouTube. But look, and they're trying some fancy bullshit. They don't know any fundamentals. They learn some fancy bullshit. They learn some fancy gi choke, some fancy leg lock on YouTube. And they go do it against other white belts and it works. Of course it does. And maybe even they catch some blue belts with it. Well, I'm a brown belt. That's not gonna work, buddy. That's not gonna work. And so what brown belts and black belts will do to these people is just slowly and methodically, and almost as if you're using no effort whatsoever, grind these people into the mat until they come to the conclusion when they're struggling to breathe and your ear is right on their fucking chest because you're holding them down and you can hear their heart just slamming against their chest because they're running out of oxygen. And the technique they learned on YouTube last night didn't work. And now they're in minute number 7 of being absolutely tortured and squeezed like a boa constrictor. And their situation just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And you actually don't even do a technique on them. You just make them tap to pressure. So they understand, hey, that flashy YouTube shit that you thought you learned in 60 seconds doesn't work over here. Okay? That's what Etch is going to do to the ecosystem. That's what automatic CSS is going to do to the ecosystem. Hey, I know that flashy shit's been around, okay? Doesn't work anymore. So yeah, it's fun. All right, we got to get out of here. I'm just checking on the chat real quick. We'll end with Sonny's question because he doesn't ask questions much. Sonny is a very knowledgeable and talented individual. If you're not familiar with Sonny. Sonny, why don't you put in the chat, you can't put links because YouTube will scrub them. But if you just put the name of your, I don't know if you're still doing your newsletter. Are you still doing your newsletter? Maybe put the name of that and your agency site if you want to advertise agency work. But we'll get to Sonny's question here. When creating a utility like Content Grid, should you use the tree shaking system so it's portable at the element level, though that makes it harder to transfer all utilities at the project level? It's a really good question. Yeah, you absolutely can do it that way. So what he means is, let's go into blank here and let's see. I hate not having a starting point. I hate not having a starting point so much that I'm going to go back here and activate a CSS. Okay. There we go. All right, so I want to get Content Grid going on here. Utility class. So notice it's blank. I can for sure expand the recipe right into here. And then I've created the same exact utility class. And actually, this would be portable, Sonny. So it is portable. It does tree shake, though it makes it harder to transfer all utilities at the project level. Yeah, I don't know that you would need to transfer all utilities at the project level. Actually, no, you could, because this selector system right here, which is the overview of the tree shaking system, will have an export button. And I like eventually you'll be able to group these, multi-select them, and right-click group, like just export those ones that you multi-selected. I already had the idea for that a while back. It's just obviously functionality that's still to come. But yeah, you would be able to, and if you wanted to maybe group them by name, perhaps you could prefix them, like the name of your project dash content grid or whatever. And then all of the ones that are prefixed, you could select and export. So like that's a possibility there. But yeah, this is fundamentally better than creating a global style sheet to do this stuff. Yeah, it's New Pulse Labs. But yeah, he's gonna figure out what's next. Okay, what is this tree shaking terminology? I mean, this is, just Google it, you know? Just Google it. So it's an optimization technique used in coding, particularly in JavaScript, to remove unused code from the final bundle during the build process. So essentially what Etch does is it scans the page and says, hey, what selectors are on this page? All right, I'm gonna load the CSS for those. If it doesn't find it on the page, doesn't load it. So you can duplicate content grid. Like if I did this in the old days, right? You would be in a style sheet and you have this concept of here's hero 1 and it needs content grid. And then you have hero 2. Oh, it also needs content grid. Okay. I hit expand too quick. Okay. So there's content grid. And then you're on another page and you're like hero 3. Man, also needs content grid. Okay. So you've got 3 hero sections that are all using the same underlying code. Well, in Etch, if you did this in the selector system, this would actually not be duplication. Because unless you have hero 1, hero 2, and hero 3 all loading on the same page, if you only have one of them, you're only going to get one instance of the code. But in a global style sheet, you are going to get all this duplication, and that's not good. That's not good. So that's where you would want to use a utility class for this, if it's not a tree shaking situation. See, if I know that, well, I only have one hero section on a page at a time, so I can put these at the element level. So I can do it like this. I can do hero 1, okay? There it is. Oh, content grid, okay? And I can do hero, why don't I just make them both hero 3? Okay, and I can do content grid here. And I can do hero 3, content grid here. This is in the selector system. This tree shakes. This I did not just duplicate this. The only time I duplicated this code is if I use more than one hero on the same page. So this already protects against code duplication. So it's already a better option. If that makes sense, David. Can we get an option to filter by unused classes selectors? Not urgent, but at some point if possible. Yes, at some point in this style manager right here, it will tell you if it is being used in the project or not. We might make it a different color. We might add an icon. We might do some sort of identifier, but you'll be able to go in and see, I haven't used these anywhere. So I'm going to delete, 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 and maybe even bulk delete unused at some point. Yeah. What if you try to port that to another website that already has a content grid class that's slightly different? So there's going to be a collision detection system, and it'll essentially say, hey, you're trying to import the same class. The code is different. If the code's not different, it's not going to care. But if the code is different, it's going to ask you what you want to do. Or that's one option. I actually don't like that option, because what it ends up doing is that you have to make a lot of decisions. You got to do a lot of code analysis and decision making. For me, let's say that I imported another hero one. Okay, so I've got a hero one here. I import another hero one that has different styling. What it would put in is hero one imported, like this. Okay, so it would signify, hey, this is one you imported and it's different from that other one, and it's a modifier class. And then you get to come in and say, oh, let me work out the conflicts, or let me do what I need to do, and let's clean that up. But this would allow you to import without you having to make any decisions. I know this is CSS live stream, but is the media manager getting any love soon? At least the fixing of broken labels contrast. There's nothing wrong with the media manager. Oh, this up here is what you're talking about? This is the default WordPress media manager. Sorry, so when I meant nothing was wrong with it, I meant everything was wrong with it because it's default WordPress. But nothing's wrong with the actual media management side of it. It just sucks. Let's see. Let's identify what is causing this. So color is coming from an inline style. Okay. So all right. Did it not have its own? It's because Gutenberg never gave it a color. It was just left to inherit the body color, I guess. So it's inheriting from Etch. Look at this garbage. Like, they use static font sizes, pixel padding. What is this line height value? What are we trying to do there? They've cleared out a margin. Like, they created a proprietary dashboard panel and didn't actually style it. They just left their styling to be all inherited, which is wild. But I mean, it's classic WordPress. It's classic WordPress. The most atrocious part of WordPress is the CSS. Just checking up on chat. So right now, it just overrides the existing class. No, I think the current behavior is that it just doesn't. It might already do the imported thing. I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to see exactly what it does. If I had Reinhardt or Waji here, they could tell you. Oh. No. No, because to do that so the question is, for those of you not watching the screen, speaking of Elementor, are you going to make ACSS compatible now that they're getting a class system? That's a huge market, good opportunity to convert and educate some people. No, and this is why we dropped support for Breakdance. This is why we dropped support for Generate. That's why we dropped support for Oxygen, because supporting those platforms is somewhat of an endorsement of those workflows, and they are anti-pattern workflows. And so we don't want to be in the business of endorsing anti-pattern workflows. Bricks was the only builder that survived our cuts, because for the most part, it facilitates the proper workflow, right? There's a lot of downsides to it, obviously, but it, by and large, if you know what you're doing, it facilitates a proper workflow. So yeah, It's if we went to Elementor, this is how you know. I mean, the number of people that are like, Kevin only cares about the money. If I only cared about money, I would be milking Elementor, that ecosystem, for every penny they have. Instead, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go make any money off that ecosystem because, one, we would be endorsing the tool by integrating with it. Again, it's an anti-pattern workflow. We would be endorsing that. We would be trying to facilitate it. We would have to educate a lot of their user base. Their large portion of their user base does not know what classes are or how they work or how to organize them. There's no auto BEM. It doesn't really facilitate the use of classes, even though they got a selector system. But what did they put in? They put in Era 3 styling panels that still have all of the problems that we know exist with styling panels. They hide the CSS still. You can't touch the HTML. I don't even know if they fixed the issue with selectors not even being attached to the proper elements. I'm sure they did, but they probably had to. But I mean, why put up with all that nonsense in the first place? And then what? Just try to convert them over to Etch at some point. But like I said, like people were like, man, Elementor's gonna be so great now that it has a class system. Like people are gonna, what do you think? Magically, people are just gonna start doing great work in Elementor? They don't know what they're doing. Like like adding a selector system actually makes their situation, that like, to me, that's very interesting from the outside. How are they gonna handle that? Because a large portion of their user base is gonna complain. Oh, I got Elementor because this complexity wasn't here. You're trying to be like bricks. You're trying to be like oxygen. I didn't buy those because I wanted simplicity. That's what they're going to deal with. You know how many complainers they're going to deal with? People that tried to actively avoid anything, any semblance of doing the right thing, right? So they're going to have to contend with that. Then they're going to have another portion of their user base, probably 30% of their user base, that wants to explore classes, but doesn't really want to take the time to understand the philosophy of classes or how to organize them or BEM or auto BEM or anything else. But of course, BEM is going to be a nightmare because there is no auto BEM, right? So BEM is going to be a nightmare. They're going to spend their entire life writing class names. And so what they're going to do, what I know they're going to do, there's going to be tremendous amount of projects. So here's the thing. A class-first workflow is the workflow for scalable, maintainable web design. But just having a class system doesn't achieve that. In fact, having a class system can be worse than just having a dumb ID system. Because at least with a dumb ID system, when you see something and touch it, like, oh, hero section, oh, click, oh, style, me style hero, that like caveman approach to web development, at least they're not affecting any others. But once you've used a class with a stupid name that doesn't mean anything and you used it inappropriately and you use it on 7 different elements, you don't realize oh, me see touch class, oh, change color, oh, you don't realize that you just changed the color on 7 different things because you don't know what you're doing. So a class system in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is even worse than an ID system, I would say. So no, it's no magic. It's not gonna make anything better over there. Their support they're going to get heavily criticized by a certain percentage of their user base. Another certain percentage of their user base can be extremely confused and building the worst maintainable projects on earth. And then you're going to get a small percentage of people. And like, again, if you're to the level where you really understand a class-based workflow and BEM and variable first and nesting and all this other stuff, you don't use Elementor. You already looked at it and was like, that's dog shit. Okay, let me move on and let's try something else. They don't have any of those people. Like, so I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know. Are they going to come out with heavy free education on teaching people a class-based workflow? If they do, that's fantastic. But no, just introducing the functionality does nothing for anybody. It does nothing for anybody. I don't know. It's a typical one. I'm going to New York City tomorrow. I I don't have anything on my plate today. Actually, Jeremy's probably watching like, can we have that call now? So for Jeremy's sake, I will put this in the books. I mean, I would stay here another 2 hours. I love you guys. I love hanging out. But for Jeremy's sake, I'm going to put this one in the books. I'm going to go have a call with Jeremy about how we're handling the patterns, the pro patterns side of the patterns website. And I'll be back again next week. We're doing this every week now. Well, hold on. Is next week a holiday? If next week's a holiday, maybe not. I'll look at the schedule. But if it's not a holiday, I will be here every single week, okay? Love you guys. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for entertaining me, okay? Peace.